Okay, so chapter 3. This is the chapter that you definitely need to make sure you understand. Chapter 1 and 2 is kind of a little bit of a setup, getting you terminology, getting you, into the spirit of what is economics and what do we have to deal with it when we are talking about it, right? So terms, right? These are the guts. If you understand anything coming out of this class, it should be chapter 3, okay? And hopefully chapter 4 with it. Those two kind of go hand in hand, all right? Now, demand is where we will start first. And the reason why we start with demand is because most of us are better at being demanders than we are at being suppliers. Demanders are people who buy stuff. Most of us have had to buy something in our past, all right? Supply, on the other hand, is all about the sellers, and that's where you have made something. So if you started your own business and have run your own company, then you're a pretty good supplier. But very few students have actually run their own business. Now, that doesn't mean that you didn't, right? If you have, that's great. Hopefully, when you get to that section, you will be better prepared, right? So the first thing about demand is that it's based off the buyers, all right? And you really need to think about demand as being only the buyers care about it, right? Suppliers are in on the deal, and they know what demand is going around at, but really suppliers only have a control of supply. Buyers only have a command of demand, all right? And that's going to be important when we get into figuring out what should we set the price at, all right? So, the definition of demand, just so that you have it, is there is an inverse relationship. Now, before I even go forward, what does inverse relationship mean to you in the back of your head? Backwards. Yeah, backwards or downward sloping line, if you think back to that appendix in chapter 1, right? So there is an inverse relationship between the price of a good and the quantity purchased has a U, purchased of a good in a given time period. And this is an economic theory, or an economic identity, really. So what should I end it with? Ceteris paribus. Yes, exactly. So as long as nothing else is changing, price and quantity have an inverse relationship. So if I were to draw a model of the demand, because there's no such thing as a graph in this class anymore, it's always a model. First of all, as we do things in economics, please get in the habit of, along the y-axis or along the vertical axis, always put the price, okay? It will just make your life infinitely easier if you always do that. So please get in the habit. All right, and normally I won't write out the word price, I'll just put P, because it's easier and I won't misspell the letter P. And obviously then, along the horizontal axis will always be quantity, and again, I will probably abbreviate that with Q after we've gone through this enough times. All right? And the model looks like that. Inverse relationship, therefore it's going down and to the right. And for simplicity's sake right now, if your demand model is a little bit steeper than mine, it doesn't matter. If it's a little bit flatter, it doesn't matter. We'll get into what changes that in chapter 5. But this is just chapter 3, so as long as it's going down and to the right, I'm a happy man. All right? Now, inverse relationship. All right? So imagine, if you will, that at $2, we buy 5 of some item. Again, what this item is, who cares, right? Let's just call it something like a widget. Have you guys ever heard the phrase widget before? Basically, it's a bullshit product, right? It's nothing. What? I thought that's what. Sorry, a baloney product. There you go. Is that better? I will swear on occasion in class, and I apologize if you don't like it. Hopefully, I won't drop the F-bomb too often, though. All right. Anyways, $2, I will buy 5 of those particular items, 5 widgets. If the price goes up, if for some reason the person who's selling widgets raises the price to $3, how many widgets am I going to buy? Fewer, right? How many fewer? Again, pick your favorite number. Let's say just 1, 4, right? That's what I mean by an inverse relationship. When the price went up, what happened to the quantity? It went down. That's where the inverse comes from it, okay? It's purely moving from one point to another on the line or on the model. If you are moving to a higher price, you will move to a lower quantity. Likewise, if you move to a lower price, like let's say $1, how many will I buy? I will buy more, let's say 6, just so that it's a nice straight, boring line. Okay? So that's all the inverse relationship means, is that as one variable goes up, the other variable goes down, and vice versa. If one variable goes down, the other variable goes up. They're moving in opposite directions. All right. So, all of this still has ceteris paribus going on. So, in other words, the only thing we care about when it comes to widgets is price and quantity. All the other things that affect widgets, the rest of the world, the universe, yeah, it's not moving. It has not changed, right? And this is a very valid, I mean, would you guys believe that this is a true assumption about the way the economy works? And most people agree. I had a student one semester who tried to say that that was false. We had a 2-minute discussion on how to deal with ceteris paribus again. What does it mean to fix everything else? And they're like, but what about ice cream when it gets hot out? The temperature has not changed. It's fixed, right? Whatever. Okay. Thank you for all agreeing that that's the way it is. All right, so now, one of the things that you have of, at least for this class, is understanding the difference between a change in demand and a change with an E in it in quantity demanded. A chang. It's a silent E, so sometimes it disappears. All right, so when I changed the price, okay, when I raised the price, what changed? Quantity. All right? Did demand change? No. All that changed was how much I buy. Okay, one of the worst and most annoying things that a lot of politicians say is, well, if we would just get people to lower the price, demand will grow. No. If we lower the price, what grows? The quantity that we will buy for that product does not change, all right? Think of demand as being how much do you like something, right? So you like, if we change this to be something along the lines of costs $2 nowadays. Let's say a Coke, all right? So it's a 16-ounce Coke or something along those lines. You like Coke at a certain level, or you don't, depending on whether you do or don't. When the price is $2, you will buy a certain number of them. If they lower the price to $1, do you like Coke more or less? No, you haven't changed your desire for Coke at all. All you're going to do is buy more or less of it based on the change in price. That's what's known as a change in quantity demanded, right? It comes from a price change. When the price changes, the quantity demanded changes. Demand does not, because you don't like things more or less because of the price. You will just buy more or less than the price. Now, what might actually make you like Coke more? Well, but the price is just going to change the quantity. But what happens? What would make you buy more Coke at $2? Yeah, suppose they change the flavor, or better yet, let's assume that a new study came out from the American Medical Association that said Coca-Cola will cure cancer. I mean, it could be true, right? I mean, we don't know. I mean, maybe the ingredients in Coke they're using actually, inhibits cancer from forming in your body. And if we would just find someone who just drank Coke nonstop and discover that they never got cancer, we'd be like, oh, holy crap, let's do a study about this. And it's done by a whole bunch of, independent researchers. They're independent, I swear, and they say that Coke will now prevent cancer. So what will happen if Coke is $2 a bottle when you hear it cures cancer? Are you only going to buy 5 of them? Yeah, you're going to buy a whole ton more, right? Say you're going to maybe even buy 10 of them. So what happens if Coke is $3? You're still going to buy more than 4, right? Maybe you're going to buy like 8 of them. If they lower the price to $1, you're going to buy a whole buttload of them more, right? So what you discover is that at every price point, what happened to your demand model? It shifted all the way out. That is a change in demand. This is a new demand curve because now Coke cures cancer. All right? So that is a change in demand, and it only comes when ceteris paribus is turned off, right? Remember, when we first drew this demand curve up here, we said nothing else was going to change. We don't know that Coke cures cancer yet, right? But now that we discover Coke can cure cancer, we're like, woohoo, let's go out and buy Coke, right? So we do. You guys don't do that when you get happy and discover the cure for cancer? You'll have to watch the video. All right, so change in demand, right? This comes from releasing ceteris paribus. So you allow at least one other thing to change, and the entire curve shifts. So remember, when we were just changing the price, did I draw a new demand curve? No. All I did was said I was going to buy more or less, right? So note over here, first of all, when you just change the price or the quantity, the curve doesn't move, right? The only thing that makes you change demand is this releasing of ceteris paribus. Now, imagine, if you will, that experiment those independent researchers were doing that discovered Coke cured cancer, after they published the results, they discovered that they had it all reversed, right? They had it all backwards. Instead of... Well, guy, haven't you guys ever done that before? You do an absolute whoops. I meant to add the numbers, but really I subtracted them, or vice versa. I mean, well, maybe. So if you discover that Coke instead causes cancer instead of curing it, whatever. I mean, what's going to happen to your demand for Coke if you discover it causes cancer? It's going to shift. Instead of shifting to the right, which way is it going to shift? It's going to shift to the left, and it may shift like all the way straight, flat, up and down, but you may really like Coke, right? Well, I mean, haven't you guys ever seen the commercial that shows you if you stick a penny in a Coke that it'll dissolve in less than 36 hours? Yeah, I mean, yet we ingest this product. I mean, it will dissolve a penny in a day and a half.
It took me a really long time, but I finally got my husband off of drinking a 12-pack of Coke a day. Oh my God. It is.
Ow.
How did that without your peppers? Any inside slap. Do you have any water left in your No.
But his intestines are really rubbery. Okay, so regardless though, please note that when you release ceteris paribus, if your demand grows, it shifts to the right. If your demand shrinks, if it lowers, it shifts to... Get in the habit of thinking of shifts in demand as shifts to the right and shifts to the left, okay? Don't think of it as up and down. That tends to cause students difficulty, and you'll see why when we get to the supply side, okay? So again, increases, shift right. Decreases, shift left. All right, so we've set the table. We now know demand. We know what it is, right? Here's the classic definition. You could, book me if you needed to, right? In addition, you now know how the model looks, roughly. And you know how changes in demand come versus changes in quantity demanded, okay? And you're going to want to get in the habit of differentiating between the two of these, right? So don't say that the demand changed when you mean that the quantity demanded changed, right? Anytime the price is what's changing, the only thing that's changing for you is the quantity. Things other than price, that's what actually changes demand. And again, we'll get into more examples of that here in a little bit. All right, so we need an example. Okay, something that's a little bit more concrete than widgets and Coke. Not that concrete is not Coke is not concrete, but I'm not a Coke fan, so. All right. So, let's imagine that you get a job, or maybe you get hired by food services here. All right. So, you're getting your business degrees or whatever degrees you're getting, and you decide you need a part-time job, and you get hired because you've taken my class to be an economist for the food service division here at Blackhawk. All right, and it could happen, right? So you decide, okay, you know what this place really needs is it needs to have more health food being sold in the cafeteria, right? I mean, the stuff that's out there, it comes from a Cisco truck, right? Which means it's mildly processed. So what you decide to do is that you are going to sell organic apples at BTC. Okay? Not a bad idea, right? And of course, you being the clever entrepreneur that you are, you say not only are these going to be organic apples, but they're going to be local organic apples. So you're going to call around to some of the apple orchards in the area and say, hey, we would love to sell your apples. Can we come to some kind of an agreement? All right? Now, you, as an economist, you want to know what's the demand for organic apples, right? How do we figure out what kind of demand is out there? You send out a survey. This is done worldwide. Anytime a company is trying to sell a product, the first thing that they do to figure out what the price is, send a survey out to, at least a small minor population within the actual population that you're trying to sell. Yeah, samples, right? This is the idea. Okay, so I got a survey from you because you know that I would always fill out a survey 100% accurately all the time. And they basically just give me a set of price points and say, how many apples would you buy if we set the price of the apples to be $2 an apple, $1 an apple, 75 cents an apple, and 50 cents an apple. Keep it relatively simple, right? Organic apple, yeah. Well, these are really nice organic apples, right? Because they're coming from, the guy's farm that's like right next to the big.
Well, no, I'm disagreeing with your prices. They're really expensive. That's really cheap.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so for me personally, I am an apples guy, and so I kind of like apples. But at the same time, I'm a teacher, which means I don't have a whole lot of disposable income. Anyways, though, they send me out the survey, and I say, at $2 an apple. Okay, I like apples, but, I can go to my own Woodman's up by my house and probably buy organic apples less than $2 a pop. So more than likely, I'm only going to buy like one per week, right? Remember, there's always a time frame with this stuff. So how many apples would I buy at $2 per week? One. $1 a week, $1 an organic apple. I'm like, well, that's starting to get reasonable, right? Yeah, maybe I would go up to 3, right? Maybe I would double it. Maybe I would go to 3. Who knows? But I would guess, right? Pick one of the other. If they lowered it to 75 cents, now I'm like, okay, definitely I'm buying one a day, right? I mean, I'm only here, though, 4 days a week, so I only go up to 4. But it's still more. If they really got crazy and dropped it to 50 cents an apple, now I'm thinking, well, let's see, I know I show up early in the morning, and I need to be here for lunch. That maybe at 50 cents an apple, I'd actually buy 2 a day, right? One for breakfast and one for lunch. I would actually eat breakfast as opposed to just having a cup of coffee, which is what I do right now, or 2 cups of coffee, depending on how bad a day it is, all right? Or 3 if it's today. All right, so here is my demand schedule, right? So this is, the idea behind it is that everybody's individual survey response represents their individual demand schedule. And what am I, the economist, going to do with this data? I'm going to model it, yes. You might call it graphing, but we don't in this class. We call it modeling. So we would come up here and say, all right, let's already get into our standard for modeling, right? P's and Q's. Right, so your P's and Q's in economics are just, making sure you put the P and the Q in the right spot. All right, so when the price is $2, $1, try and make it to scale, right? 50 cents, 75 cents, right? So the increment here is a full $1. The increment from here to here is just 25 cents, This is just the math guy in me, sorry. It's hard not to be that way. So at $2, I said I would buy 1 apple, okay? This is point A. A, B, C, and D. So I do expect you to be able to have a demand schedule and to be able to recreate the model for that demand schedule, okay? This is something you should be able to do, all right? Basically plotting points and then doing dot to dot. So you guys all passed first grade. You can do this. Even you, Amanda. All right, so out here's 3, here's 4, and here's 8. So here's 3, here's 4, and here's 8. And then when I go to draw my demand curve, and this is again where you should probably have multiple colors so that you can say, there's my demand curve, mark it as such. All right, so you should all have the demand curve for me, right? Organic apples at BTC Marshall. Because really, this doesn't represent you, this represents me. So what I would like you to do is now generate your own demand schedule. So instead of using, me as the guinea pig, you guys need to be the guinea pig. So in other words, make a new table, put in 2, 1, 75 cents, and 50 cents, and put your own numbers in there. And if you want to just copy the same numbers as me, that's fine, but you're not the same as I am. I'm pretty sure of that. All right. So, again, the idea being here that if the price changes, the only thing that's changing for me is my quantity. Now, this company, does it really just care about one person? No, right? I mean, if the only person who responds to the survey in the first week is one person, then okay, they may use this one person to start things, but eventually they're going to get multiple demand schedules in there. What do you think the company does once it has multiple people within the survey?
Statistically figures out.
It starts doing statistics. Now, what is it going to do first, though? All right? So imagine, if you will, that we all filled out the survey, and again, some of you filled it out, some of you didn't, and there's 10 or 15 different surveys at that person's desk. What are they going to do with those 10 or 15 people? They're going to add them up. All right, so right now, here is my demand schedule, or your demand schedule. What I'd like you guys to do is, within your row, figure out what your row's demand schedule would be. So in other words, for each row, figure out for $2 how much each of you would have purchased and add that number up. Because that'll give you what the demand is for the entire row, right? So if the entire row, if you all said 1, what's the demand for the entire row? If it's a 3-person row, your quantity demanded would be 3. If it was a 4-person row, it would be 4, etc., whatever. But figure out what the demand schedule is for your row, first of all, okay? Demand schedule for the row. So get yourself a table with the prices, $2, $1, 75 cents, and 50 cents, and add up all of your numbers. See what your quantities will be then. This does require you to talk to the other people in your row and potentially even move. The idea here is to be more kinetic so that you get a chance to move a little bit.
Yeah, I got 6.
All right, when you get your numbers, don't add a new graph. Don't make a new graph. Go back to your old graph, your old model, and add a new line that represents your row instead of just you as an individual. You can exaggerate a little bit. It's no problem. Hey, Cor.
Do you want us to add them together?
Mm-hmm.
The average?
No, take the sum of them, right? That's why your graph may look a little weird, right? Because your numbers are going to be a lot bigger. And all right, and once we've done it for the row, let's do it for the whole class. But this time, you can just make an approximation for the whole class, right? What do you know is going to happen if you include the entire class? Yeah, I mean, if it shifted a little bit the first time, what's it going to do the next time? Yeah, maybe double it, maybe even triple it. Just keep moving it further and out, right? So the idea is, as we're adding more people to our demand schedule, what happens to our demand curve? It keeps shifting to the right and shifting to the right and shifting to the right. And what does a demand curve shifting to the right mean? Growth in demand. So one of the first things So what changes will change demand? Okay, so the thing that changed the quantity demanded, you guys know the only thing that changes the quantity demanded is the price. The thing that actually changes the demand would be what we just did right here. Changing the number of buyers in the model. All right? First off, just so that we get some more terminology, the things that change demand, they are called non-price determinants. Because again, the only thing that changes quantity demanded is the price. So the things that change demand are everything that are not price. Now, obviously the number of things that can change demand are probably a really, really long list, right? We are going to simplify that list to 5 things so that life is easier, okay? If we had time in this class, I would get down into the details of all the different types of demand changes we can get. We don't have that kind of time, okay? So I'm going to limit it to some relatively specific cases, right? The first one that we have just done here is simply how many number of buyers are there in our model, right? So we as a company selling organic apples, we want to say how many people are going to be buying our apples. Well, our first thought is, well, it's going to be BTC students only. And so we say, well, there's 3,000 students at BTC, therefore the number of buyers of our apples are 3,000, period. But that's assuming that only students will buy these apples. Well, I mean, but the likeness of apples will be determined by the survey, right? So of those 3,000 people, there will be some people who put 0, 0, 0, 0, right? which is okay. There's nothing wrong whether or not they like it or not like it. But we basically want to figure out statistically what's the average that a person would do and then say, multiply it by 3,000.
Would you ever not use a quantity? Two people saying they buy 5 and then just...
Always, regardless? Oh, no. No, we would use them too. We would never ignore anybody from our survey because we don't want to exclude anyone. But now, the number of BTC students is 3,000, but that number reported to you is the full-time students. You later discover that 3,000 is too low of an estimate, right? You find out that really there's more like 8,000 people here at BTC, and 5,000 of them are part-timers. Does it matter to you selling apples whether or not they're part-time or full-time? Probably not. And so when you discover that there's really 8,000 students for you, what happens to your imagination with the demand curve, right? Yep, it shifted out. And then again, you also think, well, right now I'm only considering students. There's faculty and staff that should be included as well, right? And there's, say, 500 of those that should be included in the model as well. Again, shift the curve further out to the right. Now, imagine, you will, that this survey was done back in 2008, right when the car company, the car plant closed. BTC had a huge influx of students for 2 years because all the people who got laid off got severance packages that said, get retrained. Right? So that number doubled in 2008. Guess what it's done over the last 4 years? It's plateaued. As the number of buyers has decreased, what's happened to our demand? It's continually shifted a little bit further to the left. And we adjust our prices and our supply accordingly. Okay? But the cool part about it is that this number of buyers, normally we were keeping that fixed, right? We said, look, this is how many students there are, we're not letting it change. Here's our demand schedule, bam. And then whenever we get an update on the number of buyers changing, we adjust the demand curve or the demand model that we had based on those number of buyers changing, okay? And that is our first non-price determinant, okay? And again, if these things change, I have to have told you that ceteris paribus is released, okay? I'm allowing something else to change other than just price or quantity. All right, so the second thing that we will generically say is something that changes demand are tastes and preferences. Again, these titles or these definitions for non-price determinants are coming straight out of the book. I will be giving you my spiel on them after the fact, okay? Tastes and preferences, this is advertising, all right? You can convince people that they like things. Or you can convince them that they like it more than they really do, right? It's way more easy than you think it is, too, which is sad or good, depending on which side of the coin you look at it, right? I mean, from a business perspective, that's brilliant, right? So if you need demand for your product to rise, what are you going to do? That's right. You're going to make up a clever jingle, 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. That was created back in the 60s, folks. They used it for 15 years, and I can't frickin' forget it. Yeah. Really? Holy crap. Which is scary as all hell, right? Again, that's why these people want to create these commercials that make you remember them, because your demand. Getting it so that even if the price goes up, you buy it anyways, right? And Pepsi and Coke are king at that, folks. They're really good. Way better than anybody else. All right. Now, does advertising ever negatively affect a product? Really, how?
Could be a bad advertisement and actually
Make it less appealing.
What was that chicken one? Was it KFC? Or no, the fish. Fishy.
Yeah.
Fishy, fish.
McDonald's?
Fishy, fishy?
Oh my God, the fish would go fishy, fishy. Yeah. Like seriously, almost threw my TV out the window. That would have eliminated any of it.
I didn't want to try a
Stop.
fishy
It's for Lent.
Awesome.
The whole, oh my God.
Okay, so there you go. There can be advertising that is negative. Now, that advertisement was meant to be positive, though, right?
Probably.
Right. So can you think of any time where there's an advertisement that is meant to be negative, though?
The stop smoking commercial.
Political advertising, non-smoking campaigns, right? Exactly those sorts of things. The ADA comes out with lots of negative advertising all the time, right? Telling you that Coke will dissolve a penny in 24 hours. Who's better at advertising, Coca-Cola or the Dental Association? Guess who spends more money on it? Yeah. Again, that's the idea, though, right? And in fact, there's lots of companies that go about trying to do negative advertising because, imagine, if you will, you're creating a cell phone package and there's only one other company that sells a cell phone package that's the same as yours. Like if you're Verizon and AT&T. What does Verizon tell you? They don't tell you that Verizon's a great product, that you'll love it, and you should come get it. They tell you AT&T sucks. Right? Or no, they say, look at this map. Isn't it ugly? And you say, oh, yeah, it is ugly. And you say, okay, therefore, I'm going to buy your product because your map is pretty or more complete. Yeah, you get red instead of blue. Again, there it is. That's another reason why sometimes advertising can be negative. Again, though, read, right? So if you're reading that this product is good, i.e. it cures cancer, shifting demand to the right. If it causes cancer, again, the other way.
There is little print at the bottom of commercials for a reason.
Yeah. All right, now, another thing or a non-price determinant that will change demand is how much money you make. That's just a noted fact that income will drive your demand. Now, there are two subcategories to a change in income. In other words, there are some products, the more you make, the more you buy, and there are other products where the more you make, the less you buy. Can you think of a product where if you make more money, you will actually buy less of it? Generic goods, right? Think about it, right? Imagine, if you will, you just got laid off, you're sitting on unemployment for a little while, you don't have a whole lot of expendable income, you go to the store and you're like, okay, I can go buy the 99% lean beef and it's $8.99 a pound, or I can go in and get the 70% lean meat and say, well, this is $1.50 a pound, I can afford that, right? The difference between those, folks, is that an economist, a normal good is a good where when you make more, you buy more. That's considered normal. An inferior product is a product where when you make more, you actually buy less. Okay? Now, again, don't forget that incomes can go the other direction, right? I probably don't have to remind you guys, but incomes can go down. So if incomes go down, will you buy more or less normal goods? You buy less, right? So when your income goes down, do you buy more or less inferior goods? You actually buy more, right? So let's think about 2009, 2008, right, when this recession started. Taco Bell was actively advertising in 2009, middle end of 2009, that their product was cheap. They tried to tell you their product sucked. It's like, if you go to the drive-thru at Taco Bell, we can sell you 3 soft-shell tacos for $1. Right? I mean, Taco Bell has the market on 2 a.m. purchases.
But the 2 to 5 thing now, too, for a while.
Yeah. So they're still doing stuff around there. Why are they still advertising that there is a portion of their product that's cheap?
Because they get more business out of it.
Because they know when you don't have money, you have to look for the cheap option. You look for an inferior good. Now, you don't think of it as an inferior good. You think of it as an affordable good. But an economist says, right? And who made money in the year 2009 for fast food places, right? Taco Bell made a killing. Why? Because they saw the market and they saw what was happening. They saw incomes plummeting and they said, look, no, we are not the top-end chain. We accept that we're not, and we don't mind, because neither do you, right? If you have to go out somewhere and the kids are screaming and yelling and you're just like, oh, God, I don't want to make anything because if I do, I'm going to kill you in the process. So, get in the damn car and we're going to go get something to eat. Where are you going to go? Right? You're not going to go to McDonald's, one, because you're pissed, and two, because you can get a bucket of tacos for $5, right? Well, isn't it 10 tacos for $2 or something? Party box, right? Isn't that the same as a bucket? I mean, why not, right? Again, now that the economy is starting to recover, though, what is Taco Bell doing? Is it continually advertising as much those cheap options? No, they're telling you, come get a taco that's surrounded by Doritos, and they're really good. Right? I mean, that's the new thing they're pushing. They're trying to change their image. They're trying to say, no, we're really normal. Because as you are making more money, you're going to look for the normal places or the things that are quote-unquote good, right? You're not necessarily looking for affordable. You're looking for awesome, right? And that's Taco Bell. Well, maybe. I don't know. Okay. But you see the point, right? So when you see me start talking about changes in income in the economy, you have to look at what product you're talking about and tell me which type of product is it, normal or inferior. Because if I tell you that the economy is growing and that incomes are on the rise, and you tell me that demand grows, you have to have told me that your product was normal. Because it could have been inferior and it really shrunk. And remember that each person's opinion is different for a particular product, right? I mean, if you're allergic to bananas, are bananas a normal good or an inferior good? They're inferior, right? So the more money you make, are you going to buy more bananas? Hell no, if it's inferior, right? So realize that you may have an opinion that's entirely different than mine. You may say apples suck, right? And if you do, that's an inferior product. So if you tell me that before the problem starts, I'm okay with you having a different opinion with me, okay? As long as it's economically valid, I'm a happy man, okay? So please don't try and be me, right? On many levels. Be yourself, but make sure that you follow the appropriate rules in economics. All right, so now please note, right? When income goes up, what does our demand for inferior goods do? Goes down. One going up, one going down. What would we call that?
Straight line.
We would call that an inverse relationship, right? So it's not necessarily that it's telling you how the model is going to look or how the graph is going to look, but it's just telling you what's the relationship between these two things, okay? These guys tend to be direct, right? If the number of buyers goes up, your demand goes up. If the number of buyers goes down, your demand goes down. Similar sorts of things here. Now, future price expectation. In other words, what do you think the future price is going to be, and how does that change your demand now? Okay? And again, remember, you're the buyer. So if you think that the price is going to go up next week, what do you do right now? You buy more, right? So if the price is expected to go up, your demand now goes up, hence a direct relationship. If you expect the price of the good to go down in the future, you wait. So are you going to buy more now? No, you're going to demand less now, okay? So this is another one that it has a direct relationship, but it's a little bit weird. But it's based on exactly what you would do, right? Again, but it's based on what you expect the price to do as opposed to what is it doing right now, all right? And I know I'm running out of time, and I told you there was 5, so there's one more. And this one's a little bit complicated, so let me write it off to the side. Price change of a related good. Now, there are 2 types of goods that are related to your good. It's similar to this normal and inferior thing. Some of your goods are substitutes. In other words, if you're talking about the demand for McDonald's, a substitute would be Burger King, Arby's, Hardee's. You guys can probably rattle off all those different things better than I can, all right? The other type of good is complementary goods. Complementary goods are goods that go with your product, right? Exactly. So if you're looking at the demand for peanut butter, the price of jelly actually affects the demand for peanut butter. Because when you go to the store, if you're going to buy peanut butter, and they're even put right next to each other on the shelves, there's jelly right next to it, right? So if you go to the store and you know you're going to buy peanut butter and jelly, and you see that the price of jelly went up, well, the price of peanut butter stayed the same, right? So peanut butter's price doesn't change, but the price of jelly went up. Are you going to buy more peanut butter or less peanut butter? Less, right? Because you came to the store and you said, look, I've got $5 to spend on peanut butter and jelly. But jelly is now, instead of being $2 a jar, is now $3. So that means you're going to have to buy a jar of jelly for $3, and instead of having, you're going to have less money to go with it, right? So higher prices for complementary goods means less demand for this actual good. Because they come together, right? Think of it as burger and fries at McDonald's, right? Which is why they started bundling the 2 of them together right now with these whole deal things. So that they can change the price of an actual French fry and not have it affect the demand for burgers, right? The reason why they bundled it is so that that didn't happen anymore. Because what they were discovering is when they raised the price of French fries and they kept the price of burgers the same, the demand for burgers went down because people are like, well, I only brought $1.50 to McDonald's. I meant to get a burger and fries, but now the fries have made it so that I can't afford it, so, oh well. Right? You either have to buy one or the other if you have enough money, right? So that's exactly why McDonald's started bundling all of their food together, was so that that kind of a relationship, that complementary relationship, they could avoid it. They are very good economists at McDonald's, folks. You become an economist for McDonald's, you work in New York City, you're making $500,000 minimum per year. Those guys make money. All right? Substitute goods, again, think of it like this. McDonald's standard burger and fries cost you $3, the deal. If Burger King all of a sudden lowers their price to $2.50, right? If the price of a substitute goes down, what happens to your demand for your good? Goes down with it, right? Because if it's, again, this is assuming that you actually do substitute them, right? Some people are like, well, I would never eat at Burger King. They don't use the proper foods. Somehow it's McDonald's maybe buys the better meat, right? Whatever, right? Again, the idea, though, is that if the price of a substitute goes down, you will demand the actual product less because you are more likely to buy the substitute. All right? So this one here has a direct relationship. Again, please remember that when we're talking about a related good, we're actually talking about the demand of the original product. right? We'll do some examples of these on Wednesday and draw some graphs/models. We will have a quiz on Wednesday. It will be over chapters 1 and 2. All right, so it will not include this because we haven't gotten through enough of it to make a good quiz. So Wednesday, again, we'll start the day with a quiz on chapters 1 and 2, and then we will move into finishing up chapter 3. Joe, turn me off.